Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Thursday. It is a joyous day because it is the return of league action in Argentina. I'm excited. We got 4 games tonight. The reserves are already seeing red cards in games this morning. It's Boca Juniors guys going in for crazy tackles at somebody's knee. It's insanity. Welcome back, Argentina. We've missed you. Lots of other things to get into as well. We'll talk a lot of MLS with Niko Moreno. At 10:30, we'll talk about games from yesterday worldwide. Chelsea had to sweat it a little bit, but they get to the Club World Cup final where I hope they throttle, demolish, destroy Palmeiras and their Brazilian defending and countering and bunkering style of play that drives me insane. It's like a Brazilian team playing like a non-Brazilian team. It's really upsetting. It shouldn't be happening. Go Chelsea in that game. I am all in for the Blues in that. We'll get into everything else going on as well. Jared Smith, let's start with you. It was an interesting match at Pataudry yesterday as Celtic jumped out to a lead, then had to sweat a little bit, then got a goal that's, one of those goals that it seems like the Old Firm teams always get. Huh. Why do they need to be propped up so much, Jared?
I don't know. I have lobbied for VAR in Scotland, and my lobbying for VAR in Scotland is not just Old Firm related. It's because they miss a lot of
everybody
stuff,
else
even outside.
Yes.
They miss a lot of stuff outside the Old Firm games too.
They do.
It kind of went the way I wondered if it might. It went the way I thought it would, and because Celtic has been coming out and throwing haymakers at folks and connecting for the last few weeks. That's what they did. They came out the first 20 minutes or so, Aberdeen pretty well organized, and then Celtic went, okay, cool, here's second gear. Scored 2 goals, mistaken goal by Wood, got caught in between. Jota puts it past him, then Matt O'Reilly's goal is a deflected shot in, and all of a sudden it's 2-0. But Aberdeen comes out in the second half and shows some fight. You get Christian Ramirez scoring a goal. Hey, Greg, you know how you can't find a striker right now to back up Ricardo Pepi? I got one. I get it. I get it. Y'all want to trash Scotland all the time. I get it. It's not a great league. It's worse than MLS. Totally understand. Yeah. Go look at the service he is consistently getting or not getting at Aberdeen with the inconsistency of play on the wing and the midfield sometimes with injuries. Dude's putting up. He's going to end the season probably within shouting distance of 20 goals with very inconsistent service, because I'll be damned if I have to watch Gyasi Zardes out of season play. And I love Gyasi Zardes, but he's out of season. You had a striker in form who can play a physical style, who is just
who's also technical. He's not just a bruiser.
Oh, no. Who can provide hold-up play and can drop back into the build-up if you need him to. He can do different things. He's been capped before, and he's finally at a place on a team that is just basically told him, hey, go play. Don't worry about anything else. Go play and show me what you can do. And, oh, my God, look at that. It's not Minnesota where Adrian Heath has cursed the striker position like it's defense against the dark arts.
Yeah.
It's not LAFC, which couldn't bid a defense, could not get a consistent striker aside from Dio, which RIP singing Holy Diver every time he scored a goal. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not Houston, which, man, Houston's been a mess for a while.
Yeah.
And look at that. He's one of those dudes who you thought, hey, if we could get him some stability, let's see what he can do. He can produce. And, if he gets better supply from the outside going forward, I think those numbers will continue to go up. But they showed fight. The goal at the end is very weird. I can tell you that from the Celtic perspective, looking at Celtic fans, they're very happy about it, not just because of the win, but because they were worried that that team last year would have collapsed and ended up losing that game. I know Big Ange was happy with the fight that they showed, and I think there is still that mutual respect between Big Ange and Stephen Glass that, look, I've been over this before, and then we'll move off this real quick. Been over this before. Aberdeen games are honestly more fun to watch when they play in the Old Firm, even though they're bringing a smaller gun to a gunfight when they play them. But
I was going to say
and play.
I was going to say even though they're playing 14 because of the 3 referees involved as well on the Old Firm side. But anyway, yeah.
but okay, your salt aside.
You guys don't need calls. The Old Firm doesn't need calls against
I
everybody
know.
else in the league. They get them.
Again,
It's so
you
frustrating.
are in Scotland so badly.
Yeah.
But then you have to make sure that the folks who are in that particular position
we get it right. Yeah, there's no guarantee that happens.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
but ultimately, like I've said before, Aberdeen's a lot of fun to watch when they play teams like Celtic and Rangers who want to come out and play.
Because then it's a game. Yeah, it's not. It's
because
not
then it's not them
wall.
at Livingston away, where it's Livingston's going to put 11 guys behind the ball plus 3 fans, and they're going to try and pop out on the counter on you. Like when they play teams that want to get out and play, we saw it against Rangers. The last 2 times they've drawn with Rangers, they should have won both games. Thanks again, Scottish Pro. I don't know what you're called, SFA. But they are more fun when they get to play a team that wants to come out and play, even if that team is going to be more expensive and sometimes better man to man.
Yeah, not a good first half from Aberdeen yesterday.
No, not at all.
Didn't come out in just a good setup. Nothing worked. 2 changes at halftime really sparked, I think, a resurgence for Aberdeen in the way they played. Kennedy and Ojo coming on. Ojo assisted on both goals. Ramirez and Ferguson get the goals. And then just immediately giving one up, even if it was possibly offside. It looked like it. It looked like it live. It looked like it from the stills. It was a weird goal. It looked to me
like Jota's not offside, but Alaba was and is interfering with the play.
Yeah. Jota was close, but there was the other one too that I think was even more obvious.
Oh, yeah. Alaba was I think he was, and he basically set like a "I'm not moving" kind of pick that impacted the play. Dude, he's one that you know what? If Celtic fans don't want him, send him to Aberdeen, because that dude is like 20-year-old Israeli player who is just lighting it up.
Be careful with the Aberdeen fans about sending anybody else from Celtic over there. They don't like that sort of thing too.
Oh, no, I'm saying send him on a sale, because if Celtic don't want him, I'll take him on a lot of places. That dude's good. It's not always fancy, but he's just producing. He's contributing to goals constantly.
John, what notification are you getting? Because I know that's from you.
Yeah, no, it was some kind of an email that I just X'd out.
I figured
it was like a Windows update.
No, that's the email from another couple of places, and when you get that email, it makes that noise for some strange reason. Instead of just adding to it, you get the notification of, "Hey, here's an email." Not like I won't check it later, but hey, here's
some strange reason. You can turn those off, John.
I just X'd out of it, yeah. So it's
you can actually turn it where it doesn't make the noise. So it's high level stuff, I know.
Yeah.
Other games yesterday. The Leeds Aston Villa game was drunken madness, 3-3. I totally agree with Steven Gerrard and what he said afterwards, that if you don't enjoy watching Coutinho play, you probably don't enjoy football. Just brilliant player. And those games get nuts when you're talking about Leeds at their best, which they haven't been enough this season. And I do think this is going to be Marcelo Bielsa's last year at Leeds. But when they're at their best and they can get the opposition kind of succumbing to playing their way, and it just turns into a track meet, and it's back and forth and it's chaotic. Those are fun games afterwards, after you can reflect. They're fun games for neutrals. Might not be fun games if you're in them. Southampton goes to Tottenham, wins 3-2. Crystal Palace and Norwich 1-1. City 2-0 over Brentford. City just continues doing what they've been doing. Monterrey with a little bit of a reputation enhancing win in the 5th place game of the Club World Cup, 3-1. Although there's also reports out of Mexico that Javier Aguirre might be preparing a resignation, or his bosses might be preparing a severance package for him, with Vucetich, former winning manager at Monterrey and a million other places, potentially in line to replace him. Chivas got a win last night, and I am deep in Chivas prep for this weekend, because we're probably going to see, we're definitely going to see more of their first team reserves, their second team, Tapatio, and their U20s, I would assume, maybe even further down than that. I've got the roster if we need it. Because Chivas played last night at Juarez. They got the win. And then they play again on Saturday. So we will see guys who don't play. One guy we might see, which is actually really interesting, a player who was linked with a move to MLS at one point. He ended up going to Spain and Getafe. but they rescinded his contract in November, and he came back to Chivas. Jota Macias. Jose
That's
Juan
an outstanding
Macias.
name.
Well, JJ.
Jota is,
It's JJ. So,
yeah.
Jota.
It's still an
It's
outstanding name.
I love it. I'm going to make Mike call him that if he plays. And he might, because he is returning to Chivas right at the end of the transfer window last week. He hasn't played for them yet. They're getting goals from other places, so I don't think he's going to jump straight into the lineup. It might be his first game back with Chivas in the friendly against Atlanta United. So that might be an interesting little subplot to that one, is Jota Macias and his return to the Chivas shirt. What else stood out to you yesterday, John, in all of the action worldwide?
You look at Southampton and Spurs, and Ralph Hasenhüttl on 23 shots, I believe, yesterday. Said it was one of the best efforts that he had seen from his club. Antonio Conte post-match said that, that we still have a lot of work to do, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And it was a game that almost was at 3-3, but once again, VAR had came into play, and there was an offside for Spurs, and so it stayed at 3-2. Tremendous effort by Southampton. And once again, we're reminded about what kind of a player James Ward-Prowse is, active in all three Southampton goals in one manner or another. And there's, you just saw Ralph Hasenhüttl completely and totally exhausted at the end of this match because of how back and forth it was for the full 90 minutes. And so if you're a Southampton fan, a lot to smile about after yesterday. And if you're a Crystal Palace fan, Timu Pukki scores 38 seconds in. You're having to climb uphill for the remainder of the match. It was 1-1. And then if you haven't seen it, I'll probably post it in the Discord if I can remember how to do that. But Wilfred Zaha's penalty kick miss in the 60s that could have given Crystal Palace a 2-1 lead, and the full points instead of 1 point was definitely one of the worst misses of the season to date. So if I can figure out how to cut and paste into the Discord, I'll give people the link so they can see it.
John, if you can't figure out how to turn the notifications off on your email, I don't know if the Discord's going to be willing to receive you.
Well, so we'll see what the Discord my response is when I attempt to do something into the Discord. I'm just saying,
Jared. I don't know how to transition out of that. You got to take
it.
Jared has nothing.
How about you touched on it earlier, but Jason, tell me about. I'm gonna hard transition you out of this into something that you can yell
Sometimes
about.
You got to do that. Okay.
Tell us why you want to see Palmeiras blasted into a small dying star.
You're painful.
Well, I watched the Copa Libertadores last couple of finals. The first one that they won was the one that was more upsetting when it was an atrocity against the sport of soccer. Brazil, Joga Bonito, they've done commercials. They've had ad campaigns. The beautiful game. We know all these things about Brazil. Palmeiras, no, they don't subscribe to those theories. It's defend. It's fall down. It's then bring on a 95-year-old Felipe Melo to kick somebody in the head. It's not fun to watch. It's really effective. It's very good for what they're doing because they're winning Libertadores titles. They're in the Club World Cup final. The effectiveness is there. As a fan, as somebody who wants to see a good game, it is not the style that I enjoy in any form or fashion. And come on, Tommy Tuchel, get back from the COVID and lead Chelsea to a 5-0 win. I want 5, Chelsea. I want them to suffer. I want them to cry. I need to see this. The way Chelsea played yesterday, I don't know if they got 5 in them. They needed Kepa to make a big save in the second half. Couple of big saves, actually. Kepa was big in this game. Al Hilal played really well. Yeah. I don't think Chelsea really got out of second gear in this one. But Kepa's your man of the match in a Club World Cup semifinal against Al Hilal. Chelsea's got to be better. It's the hard thing about some of these Club World Cup games. It's set up for the European champion and the South American champion to meet in the final. That is typically what happens. Those are the two best winners that get there, and typically the European winner wins it. You do see some upsets from time to time, but coming into the thing, knowing that it's a long trip, you're coming in, you've got a bigger game on the weekend. It's hard at times to get up for these. I think if you're the European team, especially, The South American team's been upset at least enough times to where, okay, yeah, you gotta go for it in that game. I think Chelsea will run Palmeiras off the field. I really do. I just think that they can not be disrupted by the bunker and counter side of things. I think they've seen that plenty. They know what's coming. Tuchel's a great coach. Get away from the manager side of things as a coach. I think Tuchel will have a game plan ready to deal with it. I'm curious to see how they deal with it. One other thing from yesterday that I wanted to touch on before we move on. In Spain, if you have not seen the highlights of Copa del Rey, Real Betis winning 2-1 over Rayo Vallecano, the William Carvalho nutmeg, it's one of the best nutmegs I've ever seen in my life, because the defender tries to prevent the nutmeg by dropping to a knee.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. Carvalho still nutmegs him and then scores. Like it's one of the most insulting, just harsh, cold moves I have ever seen. Just a simple, bing through the legs with the guy's knee on the ground and then scores the goal. Great highlight. Nico Cantor shared that, as well as a bunch of other people. But one of the nastiest things I've seen. All right, let's jump into some other stuff. I want to go back to Tottenham really quick. Tottenham was a team in the transfer window who was busy. Tottenham doesn't have enough for Conte to do what he wants to do. Conte giving up 3 goals in a game with Southampton's probably he probably didn't sleep. He's probably still throwing things at the wall. They probably already trained. He might have stayed inside throwing things at the wall. Then you add on top of it one of the misses in the transfer market, which they had hits and misses. They did end up adding some nice pieces. But Luis Diaz looked like he was going to go to Tottenham, goes to Liverpool instead. And Luis Diaz's father has come out. Blue Radio had this, that Tottenham's hesitation over the signing allowed Liverpool to jump in and get the deal done. I wonder how Spurs fans feel about that. I wonder how Spurs fans feel in general right now with where things are, because I guess what I'm coming back to with Conte is, we know he wants the players to be able to compete. He wants to win things. He doesn't go somewhere for a project. He doesn't go somewhere just to be a nice coach. He wants to win everything he can. He doesn't have the team to win things right now. Even with the additions they made, they are good, but not great. Can he get them into a Champions League spot? Yeah, I think he can. I think he's got enough to do that. I think he can compete with Manchester United and some of the others for that. But that's not what Conte's in it for. And I wonder if he's got questions now after this transfer window as to the effectiveness of what his team can be at Spurs. And, we've talked about the managerial carousel maybe drying up a little bit. There's not quite as many big names out there. I mean, the Pochettino to Manchester United stuff continues to gain steam in the English media, alongside all these players that Ralph Rangnick supposedly wants to bring in to fit, Ralph's style of play, to fit Ralph ball, which is not Pochettino ball. So, okay, I have no idea what's going on at Manchester United. Who knows? There's probably 2 different boardrooms that are fighting it out these days. But when you start to see those dominoes, okay, Pochettino leaves PSG. Does Conte look at PSG and say, well, they're spending more than almost half of the French league combined. Maybe I should go there if I want to win things. Do other jobs open up? It's one where I think you got to be a little worried about that if you're Tottenham, because hesitation over signing a player like Luis Diaz and Liverpool jumping in and getting the deal done, that should set off a red flag. Now, is it true? It's Luis Diaz's father saying that. I don't know if it's true or not. But when that's starting to become the narrative, that might set off a couple of notification dings in Antonio Conte's head.
This season, after the match, and I went back to try to grab some of the quotes that Conte said after the match. And, against Leicester, they win 3-2. They were down 2-1. But yesterday, they were up 2-1, lose 3-2. Conte said He says, after the match yesterday, I've seen the 2 goals. We conceded 2 goals with the defensive line that had to stay there. We need to be more accurate, but I know very well that this season we are going to struggle to get 3 points. And I said this before, and I continue to repeat it. For sure, I think we're now improving in many aspects, but we are still too emotional. And so he's looking at the players giving 120% effort was maximum. Cannot say I didn't see the right attitude or didn't see the right commitment because I saw the maximum. Have to avoid defeats like this. And you're having to avoid defeats like this with the players that you have. And when you see stuff that comes out from a player's father, and you know that Conte is not going to take a job unless, and he came in and he said, I need this, and I need this. And if the front office, if Daniel Levy and the front office of Spurs are going, well, okay, we hear you, but they're not closing the deal on helping Conte out. If I'm Antonio Conte, I have questions. I legitimately have questions about what can be done if I'm Spurs to help me out and giving me the resources that I need to win. I think it's a legit question if I'm Antonio Conte going forward.
Well, the question is what can be done. The answer is spend money and
they're not
recruit players effectively. No, they spent money. Let's not make things up here. They spent money
to Conte's own specifications, where he says, "I want a player at the front, I want a player in the middle, I want a player at the back." You know, obviously, as a manager, you have your own expectation, and there's only so much that a team can do. Yeah, we'll spend money for you, but it may not be the pie in the sky stuff that what you're looking for.
We don't know what was said between the two. We know it was rumored to have been said when Conte took over that he wanted spending. They needed to get spending. It took a long time, and that's what I come back to is I've always felt like the best clubs have gotten their transfer dealings done as early as possible. It's not always the way it can go. There's always things that can come up that can slow it down. But the earlier you can bring guys in, and Jared over in Scotland, I mean, you've got the prime example here at Celtic with announcing, 3 signings before January 1 that they're coming in, and they got on the ground early in that winter break. And Celtic's been flying ever since they got into the squad. Getting guys in early is important, and Spurs could have done that. And when you're hesitating over a guy like Luis Diaz, that Liverpool jumps in and says, yeah, we'll take him. We'll send guys down to Argentina to do the medical. Yeah, we're in. Let's do it. Like, that's the hesitation is more of the problem than just the spend to me. If you find somebody you want, you got to go get them. I think Celtic showed that if you do it early, you're in better shape. You're in better position. Your manager's in a better spot.
He is. Also, fun fact, get yourself to a TV to listen to Scottish announcers try and pronounce Reo Hatate and Dyson Maeda's names.
Forget it.
It's outstanding content.
I'm sure there's like 5 different pronunciations per game.
Yes.
Well, it also depends on where you're from in Scotland, because there's not just one Scottish accent.
That's very true.
The Aberdeen accents were not like they weren't great, man. They were struggling a bit with it. Glasgow's done the same. It's wild.
John, what are you doing now?
Sorry, I was adding the Zaha penalty miss, and the Nats were up instead of not being up.
You already added it. It was already in there.
Okay. Well, it's a different version.
Okay. You added one with some salty language on it in the Discord. I was a little surprised.
And I found the one that's got less salty language, and that's the one that I'm posting.
John trying to delete things in the internet world these days is always entertaining.
That's true.
Yeah, it's. I'm going to be watching Spurs. I'm going to be watching Spurs to see where this thing goes. But that immediately set off some red flags for me about why are you hesitating on Luis Diaz? Look, people have been talking about Luis Diaz going to a major club for over a year now. If you watched him in the Copa America last summer, there's no need for hesitation. If he's the position you want and you got the money to do it, you do it. You don't waste time.
Mm-mm.
The hesitation to allow a bigger club to come in and grab him, that's a problem. That's the issue for me, is the lack of maybe getting deals done, just getting it over the line. We will see how things go for Tottenham. They're going to have to defend better if they're going to move up the table. Today's action: Liverpool hosts Leicester, Wolves hosting Arsenal, Copa del Rey Athletic Club hosting Valencia. Those are the big games. We got Coppa Italia as well. Atalanta hosting Fiorentina. Juventus hosting Sassuolo. Got some Coupe de France. Nantes hosting Bastia. And the return of the Argentine Copa de la Liga. And the return of Defensa y Justicia. They are on the road at Newell's in Rosario. Central Cordoba is hosting newcomers Barraca Central, Sarmiento hosting Tucumán, and Patronato hosting Argentinos Juniors. Paramount Plus, I believe, they have them in English. I believe they'll have them in Spanish as well. I'm not sure if Finati still has a non-exclusive on the Spanish language, because they've had some, at times Finati's has had different feeds in Spanish. They've had the TIC feed, and they've had another feed as well, different times, depending on the broadcaster. So not sure where that stands, but I know Paramount Plus will have these in English at the minimum. Newell's signed maybe one of the best names in the transfer window. If you remember Yuri Zorkaev, the legendary French player who played for the Metro Stars as well, Newell's got the deal done with Zorkaev Reasco, who was at Liga de Quito in Ecuador. They got 50% of his pass, 3-year contract. He'll be joining Newell's, and he'll play against our beloved Defensa y Justicia and Sebastian Becasese.
And juice boxes on that one are pretty even right now. Looking at it, Newell's is a plus 164, Defense is a plus 163, and your draw is a plus 225. So that one's a pretty even one across the board.
Yeah, I think a lot of these are going to be probably even early on, just because you've got a lot of teams. I mean, even today, the window closing, teams finishing their business, and it's a very different kind of transfer window when you're talking about Argentina, because there was a number of sales, and then River Plate just decided to go get everybody they possibly could and create a super team. They don't play until Saturday, and they will be on the road at Union. Curious to see, Jarrett, when Marcelo Gallardo gets this entire group together, who plays and how they prioritize. Because in this first part of the season, I think just to understand the lay of the land in Argentina, you've got the group stages of Copa Sudamericana and Copa Libertadores going on in the spring. This is depending on how you look at it, I think it's probably the third most important trophy in Argentina domestically. It's a league cup, but it's like a miniature league. It's not like the Gummy Bear Cup, because they actually play a lot of games in it. You play 14 games, 2 groups of 14. You play everybody in your group. Then you play one interzonal Clásico. So, of course, Boca and River will play. Of course, Newell's and Rosario Central will play. So it's 14-game season, then playoffs, which are pretty cool. Quarterfinal, semifinal, and final. Top 4 in each group go through. So River will be taking the Libertadores more important in this portion of the season. Colón won this tournament last time around, which was a bit of a surprise. But all of that talent that River's added, a bunch of talent coming back from MLS, but just a bunch of talent in general. I can't wait to see how Gallardo just manages it. River will be a must-watch, in my opinion.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I mean, Jared,
River's going to
look
be
at all of this stuff, and it's going to be a fun watch, Jared.
Yeah, River's going to be. There's going to be a lot of pressure too. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, but it's going to be a lot of pressure on Gallardo. It's going to be a lot of pressure on the entire roster, because you build that kind of monster. You're expected to go out there and fill up the trophy case. You need to be setting off the metal detector when you go through the airport. So you got to do it now. It really. I mean, it sounds simple and dumb, but you got to go do it now. Now the time for pictures and talk and fluff pieces is all done. Now you have to go do it on the field.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to here. And yeah, while this might be the third most important domestic trophy, well, they've got the team that can win everything because they've got so much depth. They can field a different lineup in the Copa de la Liga matches than they do in the Libertadores matches in the midweek, and should be in the running to win both. They've just got to finish in the top 4 in their group. They've just got to get into the playoff. The group stage, just for a calendar perspective, the draw is not till March 23rd in the Libertadores, because you're in the first stage of qualifying rounds right now. Second stage will be end of February, first week of March. Then the next week is the third stage. Winners go in. The draw for the Libertadores is March 23rd. So April, you're going to play 3 group stage games, May, you're going to play 3 group stage games, 6 games in the group stage of the Libertadores. That's where it gets crowded if you're talking about a river. So you can pick up wins here early, position yourself really nicely in the Copa de la Liga standings. But then you get into a situation where you'll be playing, you're at Defensa on April 3rd. Then you'll have a midweek Copa Libertadores game. Then you'll host Argentinos Juniors. Then you'll have a midweek Libertadores game. Then you go to Bonfield. Then you have a midweek Libertadores game. Then you go to Talleres. That's where it's going to get crowded. So for them, they've got to find their rhythm with all of these additions in the first part of the year. One player that it looks like they are losing, who is headed to Russia and CSKA Moscow, is Jorge Carrascal, the Colombian number 10. But they immediately were linked to Bruno Enrique of Flamengo. So, they're not going to hesitate. If they sell Carrascal, they're just going to go add another great player on the continent into the group. It is a super team in a lot of ways right now.
And with all of the pressure that's attached to it, it is going to be a must watch. And for me, it's going to be interesting to see how Gallardo does juggle this, knowing that you want to win as much as possible, and you want to try to get on the front foot in any and all of these competitions, so you can have that space where you can wiggle your lineup a little bit and not feel any kind of a pressure. So no, it is going to be, it's going to be must-see TV, and as much as possible for me. So it is going to be a target view for me because of the expectations that we all have from the outside, the expectations that they have on the inside, the pressure from the outside, and obviously the pressure from the inside with all of this talent as they're chasing after all these titles as that super club where they're just bringing in folks to try to win everything.
All right, Jarrett. Sebastian Giovinco is talking after signing with Sampdoria, and he's talking about Toronto. Said he didn't think twice when he received Sampdoria's call. That's what he told Sampdoria's official website. Quote, "I prepared the luggage and hit the road. I will live in Toronto in the future." He was training with them, just to remind you. "But some opportunities only come once in a lifetime. I am happy to have signed with Sampdoria, a prestigious club with a fascinating kit." I guess he liked the uniform. That's why I signed. "I will give my all for the club to gain survival as soon as possible."
Kit. That's all the reason I need.
Sure. Okay, this is where he gets into some detail here. "As you all know, I'd been training with Toronto until 10 days ago. I had almost closed the deal with them, but then it collapsed. I was told that I was not in their plans. 3 days later, I received a call from Sampdoria. I want to enjoy every moment here." Now, as we saw yesterday in the Caden Clark trading sweepstakes, and we'll get into how that broke down here in a second, you had to get to the top of the allocation order to add Giovinco if you were Toronto. They might not have been able to pull that off. They might not have been willing to give up the pieces they had to do it. They couldn't just sign him. That needs to be understood. They had to get him through the allocation order because of the amount of money that was received when he left. Okay. The pricing of getting there, and that's what we learned, and Toronto was involved in this when they couldn't get the deal done for Giovinco. They help the Red Bulls move up to get Caden Clark. Now, let's go back to the Caden Clark situation. Caden Clark was sold to Leipzig. He's not going to play at Leipzig. The Red Bulls had to spend a lot of allocation money to get him back to be able to play this season because of the transfer fee they received. Yes, it's all in the same family, but the allocation money has nothing to do with that. They had to give that up. And I do wonder what his cap hit's going to be because of all this as well. That's going to get interesting. But $575,000 in GAM to Toronto to get the number 2 spot in the allocation order, and a 2022 international roster spot, which, as we know, have been valued at around $250,000 this offseason. And then, so they're number 2, Cincinnati's number 1. They had to trade $100,000 to Cincinnati to move up a spot. Cincinnati's now back to number 1 after New York used that spot to get Caden Clark. Toronto would have had to give up somewhere in that ballpark of, 575, 675, an international spot, 925 to get to the number 1 spot if this is the market rate, to add Sebastian Giovinco and sign him to a TAM kind of a deal. Either they were not willing to do it or they couldn't do it. But now they've added $575,000 in allocation money and an international spot. So while they might not get Giovinco, maybe they'll actually sign a defender. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy talk. I don't know. Toronto might not want to defend.
No.
The Caden Clark situation, Jarrett. Let's start there before we go to Toronto here. Talented player. Didn't play a ton last year. He had the appendix issue at one point. I don't think he fit Gerhard Struber's way of playing as much, who's still the manager at Red Bulls. He wasn't ready to go straight into Leipzig's team. They've got other issues as well right now. They didn't want to loan him to Salzburg, which I kind of wondered if they would do something like that. They didn't do that. He goes back to New York. Caden Clark at one point was a guy that people were saying would be in the national team like now. This is a really weird situation for a talented young player. I hope it works out, but he didn't play a ton last year, and I don't really know why. I don't know if that changes him going back to New York now. It's just an odd situation all the way around. They gave up a lot to bring him back.
Well, the secret is keep the ball on the ground, and you keep him from hurting you, because remember, he only hits volleys, like beautiful, crisp volleys,
True.
like a crisp $20 bill. If you keep the ball on the ground, Caden Clark's not going to hurt you as badly. That being said, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious, how that conversation went down with him, getting sold. And they said, "Hey, we're going to send you back to New York." I'm curious, what he said about it. But maybe he feels like
it went that way. That's the thing that's interesting to me, Jarrett. Is I don't think it was, "Hey, we're going to sell you, and then we're going to loan you right back." I think it was, "We're going to sell you," because he did his goodbyes and all of that. Yeah. And then it's
Surprise.
like, "Oh, yeah, we don't have a spot for you here after we bought you. We don't think you're ready yet. We're going to loan you back after you said goodbye a couple months ago." It's weird.
It's that awkward moment where you say goodbye to someone outside the restaurant, then you'll have to walk 300 feet to cars that are in the exact same direction.
Yes. That's what he's going to have to. That's what he should post on his social media accounts as he welcomes himself back to the Red Bulls.
Oh God, I wish he would. I will buy his jersey if he does a welcome back Caden Clark and does it himself.
Let's look at the Red Bulls really quick in the Eastern Conference. So they are linked to another Brazilian central midfielder as well from Legia Warsaw. That has not happened yet. They have a ton of central midfielders because they play a 4-4-2 kind of diamond/box midfield. They've added Lewis Morgan. They've got to get more out of Patrick Klimala. He's got to stop grabbing his face when nobody hits him in the face too. But he doesn't get any simulation fines or anything on that. Interesting. They've got to get more out of that. Lewis Morgan, I don't know where he fits, honestly.
Didn't order this much salt on my omelet this morning, but here we are.
There you are. Hey, I'm just saying. I remember a certain number 8 in Atlanta getting multiple simulation fines, and I watched Patrick Klimala in multiple games roll around grabbing his face when he wasn't touched.
Exactly.
He was okay last year for them. I mean, I don't think he was exactly what they maybe thought he would be. I don't think he had been what Celtic thought he would be when they brought him in initially.
Morgan he was also out of shape when he came into Celtic.
Yeah,
there were reports that he was not in shape and was not physically capable of handling the stupidity of caveman Scottish football. The physicality that comes with that.
There's that. Maybe that's why he's resorted to grabbing his face and rolling around a lot. I don't know if Morgan plays as a second forward and kind of roams a little bit here. You're not playing with wingers, or at least they didn't last year. And judging from the multitude of central midfielders they have on their roster, I don't think they're planning to now. Backline should be pretty good. I think John Tolkien coming in to replace Andrew Gutman he's ready. He's a really good young left back. He needs those games. They've also got Jason Pendant as well, but Tolkien should be the starter. They have Dylan Nealis. They have Sean Nealis. Andres Reyes is going to be out for a while after off-season surgery. Aaron Long should be ready to go straight out of the gates. They don't have a lot of depth defensively, but it's not bad. Coronel was very good for them in goal last year. They made that a permanent deal. What the midfield, quartet ends up being is the part that I'm not 100% sure. Does Morgan factor into that? Does he play as a 10 since they're not going to play with wingers, even though he's a kind of prototypical Scottish winger? Does he play as a second forward? He'll be in the starting lineup. I just don't know where. But then it's Drew Yearwood, who I like. It's Christian Cáceres, who really came good last year. I thought really took a big step in his game. And then Caden Clark, you would expect, if you're going to commit these kind of resources, you're expecting him to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3. then is it Omer Fernandez? Is it Frankie Amaya, who you committed a lot of resources to in the past, but hasn't really been that guy? Wickelman Carmona ended up playing a lot last year. I like him as a player. Couple of young guys in Bento Estrella and Daniel Edelman. Jesus Castellano, another Venezuelan they've added to the group. Potentially this other new Brazilian. I mean, you're playing 4 central midfielders, which is one more than a lot of teams do, but you've got 7, 8 guys that are going to be contending for that. I don't really know what the Red Bulls look like in terms of going from where they were last year, taking a step up. And the biggest question is how they use Lewis Morgan, because if they use him effectively, and Caden Clark, but Morgan specifically, they use him effectively, they've got more attacking punch than they had last year. But if they don't, then it's kind of a waste. And same with Clark. It's a waste of a bunch of resources to get these guys. You're talking around $2 million plus for both, if you include the value of that international slot, in a team that is not really going to be built to their specifications unless Gerhard Struber is going to change the way they play. And then you're talking about 6, 7 central midfielders for 3 spots, and they play a 4-2-3-1 or something like that. So Red Bulls feel like the biggest swing team in the East. They could be better because they have more attacking pieces. And John, I want to get your opinion on this. Or they could be worse because they have ill-fitting pieces that they've added and they've blown a lot of resources to get them.
And if you look at it from the standing standpoint, I admit when I look at Red Bulls as you've talked it through, for me, I'm confused. And I want to see how this lays out with all of the resources that they've invested in individuals and then trying to fit them into what Gerhard Struber wants to do. Because remember, last year, Red Bulls made the 7 spot, but DC and Columbus were a point behind at 47. Montreal was a point behind that at 46. And then, you had Inter Miami, who played a lot better in the second half of the year than they did in the first half of the year. And, we know what we're going to see out of Inter Miami. It's a lot of turnover, and what are you expecting out of that? But with that group that's there, 48, 47, and 46, with New York, with Red Bulls, with DC, Columbus, and Montreal, that's a group right there where I'm expecting another year under Wilfred Nancy for Montreal to improve, for CF Montreal to improve. And obviously, if we look at Caleb Porter and we sit there and go good year, bad year, good year, bad year, this will be a good year for Caleb Porter when it comes to coaching and chasing after a playoff spot. So there's a lot of traffic in a very small amount of space here. And if things start poorly for Red Bulls, you've got a lot of folks last year who are looking to take that 7 spot and get into the playoffs. And Red Bulls could be on the outside looking in. They could be, 10th or something like that when the season's done.
I see the new memo has arrived about spending doesn't equal success in MLS, and that's being thrown around. That's not the point I'm making about the Red Bulls. I think let's understand the conversation from a soccer perspective here. This is a team. I'm with you on Montreal. We'll come back to Montreal as we go in preseason. But this is a team in the Red Bulls who have a very specific way that they play. Your recruitment's not the same. They're not going to be a team that spends the same way. Colorado's just not going to commit the resources in the same way. Other teams are going to commit resources. And yeah, some of those resources have helped win trophies, because last time I checked, there's a trophy case that's got something in it with a team that spent a lot of money on transfer fees. And there's a trophy case in Toronto that's got some trophies in it and had one of the best seasons of all time. They spent a lot of money to get that too. So money can bring success. Nothing guarantees success. Zip, nothing. The brilliant coach with a brilliant game model that is the best you'll ever find anywhere in the world doesn't guarantee success. Pep Guardiola doesn't get handed every trophy at the beginning of the season, even with everything he's got. Marcelo Bielsa, one of the most brilliant managers you'll ever find, hasn't won a lot in his career. Nothing guarantees it, whether it's brilliant tactics, whether it's spending more money than anybody else. PSG didn't win the French league last year. Whether it's, developing young players internally, nothing guarantees success. Nothing. Let's kill that narrative, please. You can throw that one in the trash can on your way out. All right. Red Bulls, my question is, and Jarrett, I want to get your take on it. The Red Bulls have a style. We've seen it change a little bit with Jesse Marsch to Chris Armas to Gerhard Struber. But if anything, it's doubled down on what the original intent was. High pressure, not looking for ball possession. The press is how they create their chances. But what they've done in this offseason is they sold Caden Clark, and now they brought him back. Okay. And they went out and they spent over $1 million in Lewis Morgan. The Caden Clark thing, look, they sold him and they got resources for it, and he wasn't going to play at Leipzig, so it's good for everybody to come back. But again, Struber's doubled down on press. Clark's not a press guy. He's a skill guy. Morgan can be a press guy because I think he'll give you that effort, but I don't know where he fits in this group based off the way they played last year. And I think he's a skill guy too, by the way. I think he's better in a system that's going to have the ball. Your two big additions don't fit how you've played historically and even more so last year. That's the question that I'm having here. Because signing guys to sign guys for whether it's allocation money or cash or whatever, yeah, it gets you a press release, it gets you a press conference, it gets you a headline. True. All that's true. But if you sign guys that don't fit with what you're trying to do on the field, you don't actually gain anything, and at times you can make it even worse. I think the Red Bulls are in that position to where with these additions, Jarrett, if they get better and they maybe add some elements, maybe Struber goes more towards a Nagelsmann where it's press, but hey, we're not afraid of the ball. It doesn't have cooties anymore. Okay, maybe they can move up the table. Or if these guys buy in and it's just devastating press and then they can have those moments with skill, maybe they move up the table. But I could also see them, as easily as I could see them moving up the table 3 or 4 spots, I could see them falling 3 or 4 spots and missing the playoffs by a lot. They're the biggest swing team in the Eastern Conference to me.
Yeah, so if we want to go from a statistical vantage point, they have an extended range. Here's my question about bringing guys like this in. What if they believe that Clark can become that guy who can provide press and provide skill and be that and evolve into that next stage Florian Below kind of guy we talked about yesterday, who can press but can also create when he has to. And if they think they can pull out the rock polishing kit and get the press side of him polished up to do that work, then you could have what you wanted from Kaku, but maybe have it a guy like that. And then, also he goes back to Europe and does what he's expected to do in Europe. Although I'm genuinely curious if I want to know how that conversation went with him coming back to Red Bulls. Because was it like New York sold him and said, bye? Oh, by the way, hey man, if y'all want to loan him back, that's fine. Or if Red Bulls got back to the office and they had a voicemail of, hey, we're going to send him back. Wait, what? Because that is it's a tough situation to be in when you are part of a worldwide system like that, especially considering New York Red Bulls just kind of feel like they get jerked around by Red Bulls in Europe, where it's they're kind of the redheaded stepchild. You get the flank steak, you get the T-bone. Here you can have the gristle. New York, here you go.
Oh, that's mean.
You know what? Actually, New York, take this one and tenderize it for us so we can use it in Salzburg.
So mean, Jared.
I mean, it is. It sucks.
You're not wrong.
Like I don't like it for Red Bulls fans here who have followed them from Metro Stars days, and you can disagree with their play style or the way they've done things. We talked about this back in the day. Chris Armas really was the perfect manager for them personality wise. Dude could have been, if it had worked, could have been so much that blue collar anti NYCFC kind of coach that appealed to more of the let's call it the Bruce Springsteen crowd.
Lay into the Jersey side of yourself. You play in Jersey.
Yes, lay into the blue collar, but I do hate it for the Red Bulls fans who have been there since the Metro Star days and who have seen them get that first push through the playoffs and get through, supporter shields only to come up short. They only made one MLS Cup, and it was because they were in the Western Conference because that one year, the way things broke down. MLS has a weird history. I'll go look it up.
Their playoff history is even weirder because they got bumped over there because the Western Conference wasn't very good that year.
Yes. I hate it for Red Bulls fans, though, because, New York Red Bulls are going to have some times like last year when I vividly remember them going to Miami and then beating Miami into basically split an atom of Miami's head. It was amazing. But you're still that redheaded stepchild to the European clubs, and that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gerhard Struber's a really good coach. I was really impressed with their development. They got better from day one to the last day last year. They're a really difficult team to break down. They're a really difficult team to beat. But I think to win trophies in MLS, you've got to be more than that. You've got to be able to win games. And, we've seen it in the previous iterations of the Red Bulls, pre-press and then after press, where in the regular season, they can be very good. You get into the postseason, can they win that game? That's why they went out and got Kaku, because they couldn't just press their way into winning a postseason series. Okay, it didn't work out. Caden Clark, kind of that guy. Okay, it didn't work out. Now I'm just really curious to see, is this an evolution for them in terms of adding more ways that they play, or is it trying to fit guys into their game model that maybe don't fit naturally, that, hey, it could work, but there's more of a question to it. We'll have to see. Jared, are you hanging out with us? Or are you leaving at 10?
I'm leaving now, actually.
Oh, well then.
Now's a good breaking. Now it's a good breaking point because we just wrapped up that conversation.
No, just get out. That's fine. I mean, man.
What if I come back? It's gonna be awkward, right?
No, I'm not going to.
Clark.
No, Jared. I'm going to tell you. I can guarantee you this. I can guarantee you this. If I'm going to go stone cold on you, I'm not spending $1 million in general allocation money to bring you back on the show in the second hour. I will not do it.
What if someone pays you $1 million to bring in allocation money to bring me back on the show?
Well, wouldn't I have to give something up to get that allocation money?
True.
No, that's how bad the deal is for you. You're getting me and the money.
That's not a bad deal. I mean, if I get $1 million in allocation money that I can ultimately go out and replace you with, then it's worth the trade-off. I can deal with that.
You could probably get an international slot too.
True.
Maybe.
You know what the value of those are these days?
Maybe.
Jess hasn't started with Charlotte yet.
True.
That's going to be a tough negotiation with Charlotte, though. That's going to be difficult.
That's true.
I don't know if I can pull that one off.
That deal started yet, but
no. She's wearing Charlotte shirts in Colombia before she comes back. So yeah, I mean, I think that ship sailed. Unfortunately, she's going to be making appearances on SDH. Don't you worry. But as a regular, I don't think I can pull that one off, Jared. I'm stuck with you.
I'm going to find you somebody. Don't worry.
No,
I'll become my own agent and someone else's agent.
No. I'd rather have you on the show. I'm just not.
It's your own booking plus the percentage.
I'd rather have you on the show, Jared. I'm just not dropping the allocation money to bring you back in the second hour. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye. John, why don't you tell us about our good friends at Eliminize?
I can certainly do that. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Only one place you need to go. It is Eliminize service. Deodoring enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They create a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes or food. Realtors and property managers can use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. And it is different than our favorite masking agents that we have under our sink of choice when we use them in the environments in our homes and condos or apartments like Febreze. So, proven scientific formula that destroys odor down to the molecule. Pricing very, very easy. One of two ways, either by the cubic foot or by parts per million, to come up with a price that is affordable for you. Results in 24 hours or less. If you have any other questions, frequently asked or otherwise, go to the website, eliminize.com/Atlanta if you should choose to do so. Then that way they know what part of the world you are reaching out from. Remember, any questions, Ask them. Eliminize, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, so they know that you are referencing from that particular part of the world. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, it is Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
All right. Now that you're doing one read, you're taking it a lot longer there, John. It's impressive.
Okay.
You're stretching.
Trying to get that 220 into the one read as opposed to the two.
Yeah, you went like 145 on that one with one. Anyway, it's all good. It's
10 seconds over the standard time.
Eliminize appreciates it, though. It's okay.
Yes.
We'll get into some questions. We got Niko Moreno at 10:30. So if you guys have some questions for this 30-minute-ish segment, we'll get into them. So fire them off. I'm probably setting myself up for disaster with that, but we'll see what happens. Couple of other things. We're going to talk to Niko, his thoughts about Xherdan Shaqiri coming into Chicago, and is that a good fit? I was on the football show this morning, SiriusXM FC, with Charlie Stilitano and our good friend Kevin Egan, who's going to be with us before the season starts, probably the week of the opener is the tentative plan. His Kevin Patrick alter ego takes up a lot of his time, I've learned.
Yes, he does, with spelling bees and such.
Yeah, scooter races too. I was asked about Shaqiri, and as a player, I mean, of course, great player. I wonder if he's got enough around him, and I wonder where his patience level will be with some of the pieces around him and having a new manager in Ezra Hendrickson. I mean, we've seen this many times. Star player, brand new manager. What's their relationship going to be? If it's strong, they'll be okay. If they're pushing in the same direction, they'll be okay. I think it's still going to take them an extra year before they're really competitive. Although they are linked with another potential addition, Atlas winger Jairo Torres, 21 years old, can play on either flank, 5 goals, 5 assists since debuting with the first team, part of their Liga MX title last year. That's the kind of piece they need in Chicago. If they can get him, then, okay, Shaqiri might have somebody to play with. He needs a running buddy is what I kind of come back to. I don't know if he has that. He'll assist Shabilko. He'll set up Shabilko. Shabilko will help Shaqiri have more space to work with. But I think he needs a partner that he can play with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's got that. That's my biggest question about Shaqiri in Chicago. Kansas City, Peter Vermes quoted yesterday, Chad Smith, who's a really good follow on Kansas City, Sporting Kansas City stuff on Twitter. Vermes quote, "We are very, very close to signing a forward and we'll announce it early next week." That's Atlanta United's first opponent in the MLS regular season. They're coming to the Benz on February 27th. Alan Polito out for the season. Who is going to be up top for them? I wondered if they would stand pat and try to maybe reshape a little bit of how they play because they don't have a true replacement for Polito in-house. Is it Kyrie Shelton? Could you go there and have a little more speed? They brought Tyler Freeman back. They need somebody at a minimum in the backup role, but I'm assuming from Vermes' quote, that's maybe a little bit more of a bigger role. It's just not going to be a designated player because of the roster rules and all of that. Polito still takes up that spot on the roster, which is, in my opinion, something that MLS should really consider changing because, in a cap league, injuries can be very, derailing to your chances in that season, but this is before the season. They should be allowed to add somebody to fit in that spot. If they want to go out and spend the money, they should be allowed to add somebody in that spot.
Yeah. In the National Hockey League, as an example, they have what they refer to as long-term injury relief, LTIR.
Yeah.
And if you have an individual who is out for a substantial period of time or out for the season, then that money doesn't count against your cap in the same sense of acquiring folks. Yes, it's basically dead money, and it's over here in a separate column, but you can still bring in players to help out with someone who's in LTIR. And
that's the same thing, honestly, they have now. They have an injury replacement. That's how Cubo Torres came to Atlanta in MLS. And if you have dead money, you have dead money. I think with MLS, because of the designated player slot, it creates a different issue than the NHL has to deal with here.
No,
I mean, if you're dealing with dead money that's affecting your cap that you can't deal with, that's the same conversation. The question for MLS to figure out in these situations, and I think they should, because it promotes adding more talent to the league. If it happens before the first transfer window closes, if we're going to create new rules that can be proposed, then if it happens before the first transfer window closes, then you should be allowed to replace that roster designation as well. If it's
Absolutely.
a U22, if it's a designated player,
Mm-hmm.
if they go on the injury list, their designated player status should come off. Now, if you want to say that, okay, that's fine, but there is a cap hit for them going on the injury list of half of their designated player amount, like instead of 600 something, it's 300 something thousand. Okay, you can figure out the rule. That's fine. There's a lot of smart people who can do that. But Kansas City shouldn't come into the season with an injury that happened last year. He tried to play through, ends up not being able to do it in preseason, has to have the surgery, and he's out for the year. They shouldn't be a man down, essentially, and an impact player down because of that.
Absolutely.
Atlanta should have been able to replace Joseph Martinez with a designated player. Now, look, you got to then solve the problem the next year, because then you have one more designated player than you had. Let these teams do that. Let them figure that out. If your idea, if you're Kansas City and you can do that coming into this year, is, well, I need a 1-year rental. I need a guy who can come in for 1 year. We think Polito's going to be back. We're going to bank on Polito coming back. I need to go get somebody who can come in on loan maybe for a year, but he's going to be a designated player that I'm not going to have the next year. Let teams figure that stuff out. Let them be big boys. Let them put on their big boy pants.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, let's do this. It creates a more competitive league. Kansas City shouldn't be hampered by this, is what I keep coming back to. You want to figure out the mechanism and you want to figure out what kind of punishment they get from their cap from it. That's fine. You can do all that. But they should be allowed to add another designated player. And right now they can't. I'm curious to see who their additional forward is going to be. Are they going to be able to go U22 with it? Are they going to be able to go with a TAM move for it? Who are they looking at? Because I haven't really heard any other rumors. So I'm intrigued by that. I want to see what Kansas City does, because I want to see what they bring into the bins in opening weekend. Diego Costa. See Ricky Ricardo talking about Diego Costa. It's going to happen today, it sounds like. I think the reporting on his flight schedule was that he would land in LA yesterday afternoon sometime. So they're drawing out the teasing. That's going to get announced. That's done by everybody's reporting. I'm going to ask Niko Moreno about it when he joins us here in about 20 minutes. Is he enough for the Galaxy to be a playoff team? Is he a good fit? And is he a $5 million kind of player? I don't know. I got questions about it, because he did not light it up with Gremio last year. Is he going to be able to dial that up in LA? I think you'll have a better forward to deal with in Chicharito, and he'll have somebody to feed. But I don't know. I'm at times I get with guys who are coming from Europe, and I know he was in Brazil last year, but you could say the same thing about his time in Brazil. With guys coming in from big clubs in Europe who've had that experience, when they come to MLS, it's not for everybody's personality. You have to be a little bit of that. You want to come in, you want to raise the level. You know you're going to be dealing with some players who didn't have the background you did, who haven't had the experiences that you did, who haven't been in the pressure-packed situations that you have. Beckham struggled with it early on. I think he got much, much better at it during his time in LA, and that's why they won later. We've seen some players come in, and you get, the arrogance of a Zlatan, who came in and scored goals and scored unbelievable goals that we might not ever see in this league again. And he also, tells Sebastian Blanco and Diego Valeri, when they both give him a jersey when they play, he gives them one jersey and he says, I'm giving you one because I'm worth twice as much as you, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you get stuff like that. And you heard the comments from LA Galaxy players in the locker room. The arrogance, whatever. If you produce, you produce. If you win, you win. Mm-hmm. They didn't win that much. And you heard players like, yeah, he was kind of a jerk.
But he conquered MLS, Jason.
Shut up. I could care less what he said. He says a lot of things. He's also said a lot of things that he should have got punished for a lot more that he said about Romelu Lukaku. But, that gets brushed away really fast. He didn't win. He didn't succeed in MLS. Great player, but he didn't win. That's the issue, is what does Costa come in like? What does Shaqiri come in like? It's a different conversation with a young player coming in like an Almada. Then it's, can they adapt? Can they grow? Can they fit the game? The game is different. Can they fit into this team? it's a different conversation with those players. I wonder if Shaqiri and Costa can come in and adapt to having some players around them who are either, and maybe sometimes both, not as talented and not as experienced, not as savvy in some of these moments, don't handle the pressure quite as well. I want to see how these guys, do they build the team up or do they get frustrated? Do you see the arms flapping? Do you see that kind of stuff? That's what we'll have to wait and see. Jason Nix with a question. What other moves do you think Atlanta might make before the season starts? One of the questions from Jason is U22 to replace Eric Lopez if all that goes through. Yeah, I mean, I think that one is a safer bet. I think they do need more depth up top, especially if Lopez goes, whether that's veteran, whether that's young, whether that's 2 for 1. We go through Atlanta's roster quickly with Almada in it now. You're talking right now, and there will be changes and there will be loans, internal loans for some guys to open up spots. You got 4 goalkeepers: Brad Gazan, Bobby Shuttleworth, Dylan Castanera, Justin Garces. I think Garces will be loaned to Atlanta United 2 for the season. You have 5 fullbacks: Andrew Gutman, Brooks Lennon, Ronald Hernandez, Mikey Ambrose, Caleb Wiley. You have 5 center backs: Miles Robinson, Alan Franco, George Campbell, Alex DeJohn, Bryce Washington. You have 9 central midfielders is what I'm going to call it, and one of them will go to the wing. Sosa, Alonso, Sadic, Efrain Morales, who I think will be loaned to Atlanta United 2 for the season. Marcelino Moreno / Thiago Almada, one of them will play on the flank. Emerson Heineman, Mateo Sosetsu, Franco Ibarra. Tyler Wolff can play centrally, but I think Tyler Wolff has shown us in preseason that he is probably going to be seen as a winger. You add him to a wing crew with either Moreno or Almada, Adrauju, Mulraney, Chol, Eric Centeno, and yes, right now, Jurgen Damm, who we'll see what happens. Up top right now, you have Joseph Martinez and Jackson Conway. So I think with loaning Garces and Morales away to the 2s for the season to open up the roster spots, those are supplemental spots. We don't know where everybody fits in terms of supplemental and what level of supplemental and senior right now. But Gazan, Castanera, Shuttleworth, that's 3 goalkeepers, 5 fullbacks, that gets you to 8 total, 5 center backs, that gets you to 13 total. I'm just looking at my sheet right this second. So 3 more midfielders. If I can do math, that's 16. Then 1, 2, 3, 6 more. That's 22, 25, or 22, 27, 29 right now. If you get the U22 spot to add 1 with Lopez out, you can add that. That would get you to 30. That probably points if you want to add another forward and not a U22 kind of spot. And this is not getting into the senior supplemental discussion right now either. You're probably going to do either, you're going to find a spot for Jurgen Damm to go to, or you're going to do the buyout. I think that might become more of a necessity if you want to add another forward. That's your 30. I mean, that's what you have. So I don't think there's a lot, Jason, to go long-winded on answering your question. I don't think there's a lot of moves they're going to make, but I think they're going to make something. And I think it's probably up top to support Joseph Martinez. That's where I'm thinking. Dawn Star asks, what player will surprise you the most in MLS this season? I mentioned it on SiriusXM-FC this morning. I think one of the best signings this season was Sean Davis to Nashville. I think he makes them better, and I think he allows them to get more out of Dax McCarty later in the year when they're going to need those moments from him. The issue for Nashville for me was the lack of a killer instinct at times. I think Dax is that guy, but Dax has got to be refreshed and recharged going into the postseason. Nashville can go and win the West. I think they have the talent to win the West. I think they have the coach who can win the West. They can go and win the West. Sean Davis will make them a better team. I think he'll be a surprise because I think playing in Nashville's system, you'll see more of him than you saw in the Red Bull system. I think he's a good ball player. I think he's good with the ball at his feet. I think he's got technique. I think he's a good passer. I think he's a good creator. I think he's a player who will get more. You'll get more out of him in Nashville than you did at the Red Bulls. He adapted really well to the Red Bull style, and he's a leader too. He's been a captain, so he'll be a big surprise, I think, for a lot of people. Kind kind of running through teams really quick. I don't know Austin yet. Anybody who jumps out as a potential surprise. I think John Hader Duran, the 18-year-old Colombian forward coming in for Chicago, a potential surprise. Did really well as a very young player playing in Colombia. He could be a bit of a surprise. Cincinnati, I want to see what they do. I want to see if Pat Noonan comes in and does the Philly thing with them, or does Noonan have different ideas? Does he kind of went down the same road as a coach that Jim Curtin did, where it becomes more press, where it becomes more of those moments, as opposed to the kind of player that Pat Noonan was, which was a very tricky, creative player. Noonan's one of those guys that gets underrated a lot when you think back to MLS history, and wasn't quite national team level, but was really good in this league. Really, really good in this league. I want to see what kind of beliefs he has as a coach. If I'm looking for a surprise out of Cincinnati, it might be Yuya Kubo. I thought he was really strong as an 8. He wasn't brought here to be an 8. He was brought here to be a 10 or a winger, and he's turned into an 8. If Cincinnati's better, I think Yuya Kubo will be a big part of it, and he might be one of those guys that is a surprise around the league. Colorado, I don't know if anybody's going to emerge as a surprise with them. My eyes are on Mark Anthony Kaye as the long-term replacement for Kellen Acosta. Is he going to be able to give them the same level that Acosta did? People have expected that level from Kaye, and he plateaued a little bit at LA and kind of got passed by some of the guys that they brought in, like Cifuentes, like Janela. Atuesta had been ahead of him, I think, in terms of holding midfielder. Can Kaye elevate his game to replace Acosta? We'll find out. Columbus, I think their players are not a surprise. I'll give you a wild card for Columbus, depending on how much he plays this year. Alexandru Matan, the Romanian that came in. Very, very tricky, very good on the dribble. Took him a while to adapt. We'd see flashes last year, and Caleb Porter talked about it. He expected that. He expected that he'd have a tough adjustment to MLS. If Matan is one of the starters, and some of the talk out of Columbus is that Pedro Santos is going to turn into a left back permanently. If it's Matan on the flank, he could be a revelation this year. He could be an absolute revelation, make them better. Dallas, I don't think Velasco's a surprise with what he could potentially come in and do. Franco Jara, if he does what he was expected to do when he signed, it'd be a bit of a surprise because he hasn't done that yet. Michael Estrada will be a surprise for a lot of people. Not everybody. I'm talking to you, Modaflow. Estrada's talented. He's potentially explosive. That's a really good get for DC. That's the one you add him, and I'm kind of like, why'd you go get Taxi Funtas? But who knows? Funtas could be a huge surprise because I don't have expectations of him just yet. Estrada will be outstanding, in my opinion. I think he's a really good fit for the way they want to play. Dynamo, Sebastian Ferreira could be a big surprise. Paraguayan coming in, ton of goals in the Paraguayan league. Can he adapt? I think they'll be better with Nagamura. I think Paulo Nagamura as the coach could be a big surprise, because he's able to mold the team a little bit more than I think Tab Ramos was able to do. I want to see what Tab does next. I think he's a good coach. I think he got kind of a raw deal in Houston because he didn't get much talent to work with. Nagamura gets that fresh, clean slate and gets some pieces that he can mold. Kansas City, whoever is the forward, has the potential to be a big surprise because that's a good team. They're going to have chances. That forward's going to have chances to score goals. Whoever it is, if they do well, they have that potential to be one of the big surprises in the league. The Galaxy, Marky Delgado in a new place and potentially with a new role. Delgado was the guy who got overlooked ahead of, or behind is maybe the better way to put it, Bradley and Osorio in that Toronto midfield. Delgado's really good. Borderline national team level central midfielder. Borderline. He'll get an opportunity to show that more in LA, I think. And Vanny went and got him. So I think that's a sign of how much Vanny believed in him during his time in Toronto and what kind of expectation he'll have in LA. Delgado taking that next step in terms of relevance could be a big surprise. LAFC, Ismail Tajori-Shradi could end up being a big surprise for them. Always liked him as a player. Really, really think he is just a guy who wows you at times on the field. Golazos, speed, I think the willingness to try things. I don't know how LAFC looks because Steve Cherundolo's got a big learning curve here. He does. But Ismail Tajori-Shradi in a more expansive, important role, he might wake some people up this year. Inter Miami, Emerson Rodriguez, one of the signings they made, Jean Mota, another one of the signings they made. I think the surprises will be more of some of the new faces. Just the question is going to be how good they can be. That's such a new project. I don't really know what to expect just yet. Minnesota, I'm sadly not very high on. Sorry, Loons. I don't know what your surprise would be out of that. If Luis Amarilla lives up to what he said in 2020, if he's signed, because he hasn't been just yet, and scores over 20 goals, then that would be a surprise. That would be a surprise if he can pull that off. I just don't know if he necessarily can. Montreal is I think Montreal is one of those teams that is the greater sum of their parts than the individuals. I think Wilfred Nancy does a really good job of getting the most out of the collective. So I don't know of individual surprises. Maybe the one is Karifa Yao, center back. They've had high hopes for a while. He was on loan in the Canadian Premier League last year and had a really good year. Does he come in and play? Does he beat out Joel Waterman? I don't think he beats out Kamal Miller or Rudy Camacho, who they re-signed. Does he beat out Waterman to play in a 3 center back setup? Yao could be a big boost for them and be a surprise in the back. Alistair Johnston going there too. I think, what he brings to the table could be really interesting to see. I already mentioned Davis with Nashville. New England, if New England somehow improves from one of the best seasons in MLS regular season history, Sebastian Lletget being an upgrade in the way that they were playing towards the end of the season, more of a natural central midfielder in a diamond setup, he'll be a big part of being that surprise. He's got to bounce back because he did not have a good year last year at all. Josie Altidore might be the big surprise there if that move gets done. Red Bulls we've already talked about. I don't know what to expect from Morgan or Clark, but they could absolutely be the surprise. Wickelman Carmona was the surprise last year. If Frankie Amaya bounces back and turns into the player that we thought he would be a bit of a surprise. I still think Omer Fernandez is a really good player. And I don't think he's a Red Bull player necessarily, but I think he's a really good player. And if he gets the minutes, he could be a big surprise. NYC, I was surprised they went and got Thiago Martins, the center back. I think he might end up being that surprise as a designated player. The expectation for him, if he forms a better defensive partnership than Chanot did with Alexander Callens, then they could be even better this year. Eber might be a surprise for some after having the injury season last year and coming back and not really being able to do much. He's scoring goals in preseason, and at some point, Tati Castellanos is going to go. At some point, probably in the summer. So Eber might end up being that surprise. I don't think you should be surprised. I think Thiago Martins could be the big surprise there. Orlando, Facundo Torres is going to get the headlines. I think the surprise is going to be Van der Vader. Just love his game, love what he can bring to that team. Torres will not be a surprise if he does well. Van der Vader, somebody who's getting overlooked. Philadelphia, which one of the kids is going to step up and be a little bit of a surprise? Paxton Aronson is who I would bet on. Quinn Sullivan might want to fight for that. Jack McGlynn might want to fight for that. Their new forward, Michael Udre, could be a bit of a surprise. I think Julian Carranza could be a big surprise because I think he's a good fit for that style of play. I liked him coming into Miami. It didn't make as much sense after they signed Gonzalo Higuain. I think Carranza has a lot to prove, and that might be a really good addition for them. Portland, and we're going to talk about the Andy Polo situation with Niko Moreno, but one of their wingers will get an opportunity to be a big surprise. He was good last year in limited minutes. Santiago Moreno, I think, can end up being the big surprise for them. Salt Lake, I want to see Sergio Cordova, the new signing, what he turns into. I I think maybe the big surprise, and I loved his game in the playoffs for them, Andrew Brody, the left back. He's one of these guys who's a domestic player, no hype, bounced around a little bit. He can play on either side. Andrew Brody won the outside back position on the left side for them. If he takes that next step up to be talked about as one of the best in the league, that could be the surprise there. I really like Brody's game a lot. San Jose, I don't know if there's surprises with San Jose, to be perfectly honest. People already have big expectations of Cade Cowell. Jan Gregush there is a fascinating one because I don't know if he's a fit for the style. We haven't seen him in that kind of a style. If he takes to it, can he elevate them? Maybe he's the surprise if they do well. I don't think there's surprises about Seattle. Albert Rusnak going there. We know what Albert Rusnak brings to the table. I think he'll make them better. I think that's a great signing. I don't think there's any new guys that are going to be surprises. I think Seattle's just going to be really good. I don't think they're going to surprise us. I think they're going to be the favorites in the West right now. Toronto, look, Lorenzo Insigne is going to get the highlights. He's going to get the headlines. Everybody's going to be waiting for him. Jesus Jimenez, I have no idea what to expect out of him. Is he going to be a potential surprise? I'll give you a wild card. Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, the young winger that I think is going to have to play some significant minutes at different points in the year. He's got the potential to bust through and be a huge surprise this year. He really does. I like Marshall-Rudy's game a lot. And Vancouver as the last one. We'll get to Charlotte too. Sorry. Vancouver, Pedro Vite, who we didn't really see last year, really good player. He could be a surprise again, not to everybody who listens to this program, but he could be a big surprise. I think Sebastian Berhalter could be a surprise for them. They just got him from Columbus. Yes, he's Greg Berhalter's son. We know his pedigree, obviously. Really good player in what I've seen from him. Can he take that step up in a new place? Potentially. But Vite, I think, is the biggest one for them. And for Charlotte, big surprise that I will put on the board out of what they have. Ortiz comes in with expectation. Swiderski comes in with expectation. Sergio Ruiz comes in with expectation. Ben Bender comes in with maybe unfair expectation as the number one pick. It wouldn't be a surprise to us if Anton Walkes has a top year. I will say the potential surprise for Charlotte could be, I don't know who it is yet. I really don't. I guess some might say if Jalen Lindsey is the guy on the right side and has a big year, that it would be a surprise with Harrison Offal there. I think Lindsey's ready to be a starter. He's had some injury issues here in preseason, so I don't know where he is fitness-wise, but over the whole campaign, he'll start more than Offal. Some people will find that surprising. I thought Offal looked like an older player last year in Columbus. I don't think he's got what he used to have anymore. Good piece to have. Good addition for a young player like Jalen Lindsey. A good player to have in your team. But when Lindsey gets those minutes and does well, I think that could be a surprise for some. I don't find it surprising. I think the biggest surprise for me could be if the goalkeeper, Christian Kalina, turns into a top goalkeeper in the league. That might be the surprise that puts them higher up the table. So that's your surprises around the league going through all 28 teams. That was a really good question. I got into that. Sorry, Don Star. And sorry if everybody else was like, could you just shut up now, please?
No, the ones that I had on my list, you mentioned Hebert, but we've seen what Hebert could do in the past when he's 100%. So I don't know if he would necessarily be a surprise coming back from injury.
No.
I had Ferreira from Houston as a possible surprise, and you mentioned him. And then I also had David Ayala from Portland, their U22 that was brought up from Estudiantes de La Plata, and as a possible surprise for me if he assimilates and gets to work well with Eric Williamson.
See, but you know me, I'm not going to say the guys coming out of the Argentine league are surprises if they do well.
That's true.
They're not surprises to me. And I mean, even in this show, the Ecuadorians are not surprises thanks to our Ecuadorian scouting network.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, Ayala, I think I don't think he's going to come in and be the number one guy straight away, but I think he'll be the long-term replacement for Diego Chara. We talked about that last time with Niko. I think he's that guy down the road. If he plays a lot this year, I think maybe he's a bit of a surprise. I'm looking at him as a little bit longer term. Grabbing a couple things before Niko joins us. Tom Bogert reporting 5 minutes ago that the Charlotte FC deal to sign Darwin Machis from Granada is off.
Mm-hmm.
$6 million deal was agreed. Medical complete. Machis was in Charlotte. Deal is off. Reported ongoing legal issue in Spain regarding Machis that is unresolved. Yep. Off. That's weird. Maybe the Spanish tax man got involved, as GH is speculating in the Twitch pitch. Don't know. Jerome McCaskill says the thing I'm looking forward to most for Seattle is that everyone shines. Leo Chu, Nuhu, the Roldans, JMO, Niko, Rusnak, AB all deserve big years. Yeah, I don't think there's anything surprising about Seattle. I think they're just damn good.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just coming into the year really good. And I guess I'd be surprised if they're not really good. That would be the surprise out of Seattle. I think Rusnak makes them better. I think Jordan Morris, healthy, makes them a whole lot better. Seeing Leo Chu in the 4-2-3-1 kind of shape, or 4-3-3, however you want to get into it, I think they'll be really good. If they're not, I'll be shocked. I guess maybe a potential surprise for them could be if Nuhu is more of a left back than a center back this year. That might be a little bit of a surprise. Vader's excited about Shaqiri in Chicago. I am too. I want to see what he looks like. Talent off the charts. I want to see who his running buddy's going to be. I do. That's what I'm waiting on. I don't look at DC as a wild card just yet. I don't think they're talented enough. I do think DC is a team that could slide down. I don't know if they've made enough to step up. If they do, it's because Estrada is a beast and Funtas is better than maybe we expect him to be. Taxi. We'll have to see that. All right. We are almost ready to bring our guest in. Let's welcome him properly.
Jason, you're muted.
Oh, okay.
Let's try that again. It was not. It was my end. It muted myself after I unmuted myself. Niko, you got the big coffee. What's up?
What is going on, guys? Big cup of coffee for what hopefully will be a big show, for better or for worse, with some of this news that we are hearing. Some really good signings, some interesting names, some young talents, and also some tough situations. So just excited to be on with my favorite two guys from the ATL, and ready to go.
We're going to throw names at you because we got a bunch to talk about. The most recent, Tom Bogert reporting that Darwin Machis not going to Charlotte after the expectation that he would come in and kind of complete that attacking group. Now what is, I guess, the biggest question.
Wow. That is definitely a Charlotte issue in a big sense, right? Because Machis was supposed to be your guy, the person that was gonna give you a different dynamic, a different dimension at the attacking end. One of the, I guess you could say, few interesting top players in terms of potential, in terms of being an exciting player, which is so key for a new franchise. Someone that I thought was going to be a difference maker without a doubt. So that's a problem. And in this type of situations, teams are unfortunately, because I've seen it happen here in Seattle, whenever those top guys, whether it's your first and second option, start to not be available anymore, you get at times you panic and you make wrong decisions because of where you are in the season, in your planning, and you make bad decisions at times. So it's a tough one for a team like Charlotte that is already looking a bit shaky or not as solid as perhaps other new coming franchises have looked at this particular point in time at 20 days or less of the start of a season. So definitely a bad sign and bad news for Charlotte.
And you mentioned it, is that you, under normal circumstances, you're an established franchise. You're 17 days away from the first match of your season, unless you're in, CONCACAF Champions League, and then it's accelerated that much more.
He was there at their media day yesterday.
Yeah.
He was in Charlotte yesterday at media day.
Yeah.
There's pictures.
And now you have this first-year club that had the player at media day yesterday that was supposed to be part of the billboards and the presentation of having this as year one, and now you don't have it, and I want to say it's something akin to, organizational chaos, because it's like, what do we do now? We only have 2.5 weeks, and we have to try to find a replacement. I mean, it's amplified the panic buy notion, Niko. It's like, oh crap, what do we do now? But it's worse because you're a first-year club trying to make that good first impression.
Hey, that's what you guys are the top show, man. I mean, between putting my daughter's lunch in her backpack and making this coffee, I totally missed that news. And I had all my expectations how much it was going to be the guy for Charlotte. So yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, I would not be surprised if a team like this one's top 3 or 4 options are now completely gone, and now you're going to have to scramble and look for, I don't want to say bottom of the barrel guys, but perhaps guys that you weren't necessarily planning on for a specific position, man. So that's tough cookies, baby. That's tough cookies.
And it may be having to overpay for someone because of the urgency of the matter too.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, teams understand your needs, right? And that goes globally as well as domestically, because I mean, right now you're probably looking within the league as well, and anything that you're trying to get at this particular moment, they're going to tax you. They're absolutely going to tax you on it. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that at that position, real top guys right now, if they're not already in the league, they're already either locked in with their teams or going to Europe or other places, man. But man, that's tough. Joao Rojas is a guy that has some links with MLS. Yeah. I don't think that's a guy that they could get. So yeah, man, it's tough, man. When it comes to those positions and those players, man, you're gonna be scratching your head for a little bit with Charlotte there.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking realistically, you're trying to find somebody in Europe who is just completely out of favor at their club that the club's not looking to replace because they can't now. Unless you're going to Russia or you're going to, I think Turkey's window might still be open, although it might be closing this week. Argentina's window closes today for incoming. There's not really any young, exciting players like this that I think you could grab today that a team could go out and replace that player. I think that door is probably shut for the most part. Brazil, possibly.
Ecuador, that's possibly what I was thinking. I was thinking Brazil, and I don't know if you guys know, I'm sure you do, but if you're going to go spend in Brazil, that tax is actually quite high. That passport don't come cheap, and that goes for Brazilian players or anybody that plays in the Brazilian league. I mean, you saw what we have seen with players coming out of Brazil. It gets expensive.
Yeah, it could be an issue. People are pointing out that there is a certain former national team winger at a team that does not have plans for him to play this season. Just down the road on I-85, if Charlotte needed a winger, Jürgen Damm could be available.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I guess so. I mean, man, my mom always said that when you're hungry, there's no bad bread. I mean, roughly translated into English.
Like that.
And that is what it is, I guess. If you're down to those needs, man, and you can get a player that Atlanta's more than likely going to have to pay his salary. Yes, why not bring him on and see what he could do for you? But it's not going to give you that. It's not going to be the shiny new penny that you were hoping for a new franchise.
But you got to fill your purse, Niko. You got to make sure that your wallet's full and you're not taking your wallet and turning it upside down and flies come out of it. You got to make sure your wallet's full and your belly's full.
And I think all that's a little unfair when it comes to Jürgen Damm. But it's not the shiny new penny, but it's a penny.
Yeah.
And there might not be another penny. Like that's
no, absolutely. And look, Jürgen has had some issues, and he's not the best passer or whatever. But quite honestly, he does have some upside, and he's a quick guy, probably with a huge chip on his shoulder after everything that's going on with Atlanta. Yeah. So, can you resurrect his potential and his talent? Sure, man. I mean, I would sign up just because of the benefits on the salary end, and then figure out the rest later.
Yeah, that could be an interesting phone call if that has to happen here with Machis off. Okay, I want to get into some of the other moves that at least we feel more sure of happening or have happened. Let's start with one that hasn't officially happened yet, Douglas Costa to the Galaxy. They need Douglas Costa to come in and be a monster for them to get back into the playoffs. Can he do that?
Oh, man. Look, this would be a huge signing and a huge guy coming into the league maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think today in this new MLS, I can't tell you that he's going to be that guy that's just going to make them give him that extra edge or that X factor and really put together a Galaxy team that still has a lot of question marks, that still has a lot of holes, that you're still trying to figure out who they are as a team, as an organization, in a second-year coach that has some huge expectations and knows the league well. But I don't know if he's going to be that guy. If you ask me, if I had to answer that question immediately, I would say no. I don't think he's going to be that game changer, that MVP, but he will be a very good player. I think that his trajectory, his resume, his speed, his read of the game, a lot of the things that he can do with the ball for you, definitely will give you a very good player. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to put the team on his shoulders. He hasn't been that guy, quite honestly. In the last few years, I would say that he's had ups and downs in his own play. So I think he's a good signing, but I don't think he's going to be your main man to pull this Galaxy team or put him into the playoffs.
Will he only be as good as the dance partners around him? Because, I mean, there was times with the Galaxy last year where Chicharito was injured, not 100%. And when you're introducing Douglas Costa into this equation, it's someone who's 31, being brought in with a high expectation at $5 million. Will he only be as good as his dance partners? Because if you're thinking if he's by himself with injuries and such, it makes it that much more tougher for him to function, to try to be that success that the Galaxy are looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that surrounding cast is going to have to be good for him to shine. I mean, he's a winger, and wingers can only affect the game at a certain level if the rest of the team doesn't play well, right? So there is still question marks on the number 9 for the LA Galaxy. Can Javier Hernandez be that guy that could live up to expectations and go back to the early part of last year where, he was just killing the game, and then he just kind of ran out of gas, right? And there was injuries and there was issues. There's also the question mark of that midfield. Who's going to be able to get him the ball that high? How much defending is he really going to be doing under this Vanny formation? I mean, there's just a lot of question marks. So I absolutely agree. If you don't surround him with quality players, then that's going to be an issue. Cabral's a really good player. I think that there's some talent. There's some pieces there. I'm not saying that the LA Galaxy is a bad team or they don't have any pieces. I just think that I still need to see more around Douglas for him to be successful. The same thing goes for Shaqiri, right? I mean, these guys that come in at this specific point in time, they are final pieces. They are those elements that are supposed to give you end product, but you need to surround them with better talent, or it's going to be another Ibrahimovic type signing where, yes, it was exciting, it was great, fun to have him, just all these jerseys, you get all this publicity, but at the end of the day, you don't get the big price.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Shaqiri because that's where I'm at with him, and I think it's even more of a question in terms of Shaqiri and Costa. I think Costa's got more to work with. Marky Delgado might end up being the really important signing for LA Galaxy, in my opinion, more so than even Costa. I think Delgado makes them better instantly in the middle. But Shaqiri, who does he have to play with to impact that team? And you're talking about a very different situation managerially as well. You know, Greg Vanney has had big stars. He's had some of the biggest stars around him. Douglas Costa, Vanney will know how to handle him. Ezra Hendrickson, first year as a manager, tons of experience, but not as the head guy. Now he's got a guy in Shaqiri who is a really interesting player to fit. He's a guy that we've always, I think, loved to watch. He's a guy that we've always thought is incredibly talented. Can he be consistent, and can you give him the keys to the van, and can he get you into the playoffs if you're Chicago? I don't think he's got enough gas in the van to get there.
Oh, man. When you look at his minutes over the last few years or more, maybe 3 or 4 years, when you look at some of his inconsistency as a player on performances, his inability to really be the man game after game for even his national team where, you know, he's the man. It's a fun signing.
Fun's a really good word. I like that because it is.
Yeah, it's a fun signing. He gets a lot of talk about. It gives you some potential. And look, he can be a guy that, if healthy, can be a top player in this league. I'm not doubting that. But can he be healthy? Can he be consistent? And that's the bigger question. Now, in terms of what's around him, there are some pieces that are very interesting, man. That central midfield for Chicago, I like. Federico Navarro is a young player with a lot of potential, someone who I'm going to be keeping my close eye on this season. I think he has a tons of potential. You got Gaston Jimenez right next to him, an experienced, proven guy that I still think can give you more than he did last year. There are some pieces there for Shaqiri to really be a guy, but you know, can Shabilko and the rest of this team really be that perfect companion to really amplify a guy like Shaqiri? That's the big question, man. So both very similar situations, a little bit different, like you said, from a managerial point, as well as the guys around, because I think that there is some raw young talent for Chicago that I think that if he can reach their potential, we could see a very good Chicago team, because there's a lot of young talent there, man. And if they can come to play and they could really shine, Chicago could be a force to be reckoned with. But there's just a lot of question marks. Ezra Henderson, look, love the guy, was able to spend a lot of time with him here through S2 and being an assistant for Siggy and being an assistant for Brian Smetzer. I think he has a great coaching tree, but you got to prove it on your own, man. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah. Tell me about the young Colombian up top for Chicago. They signed last year, too young to come in, Duran, 18 years old. We were asked about potential surprises around the league. He could be in that boat because I don't think many people really know about him coming in.
I don't think anybody really knows about him now. Duran is another good example of a guy that would have made a lot of headlines, in my opinion, 3 years ago, not because of his age, but because of who he is, his profile, right? Yep. When you got Alan Velasco, you got Ayala, you got Thiago Amada, you got all these guys coming in, it kind of shadows a guy like Duran, but he's a very good player. He's a huge prospect in the national team bubble. He's exciting, electrifying with the ball very quickly. I believe that they're going to be using him more as a second striker, so there is going to be a bit of a learning curve there positionally. physically, and culturally, because young guys coming from South America, you have to make sure that you properly surround them with the right tools to be successful. So with all those things said, I think he has a lot of potential. And if he can be the guy that a lot of us have seen on tape, that we have heard about, from a very good soccer school in Colombia, man, I mean, he could be a force to be reckoned with, yeah.
So you mentioned the situation in Chicago. You've mentioned Ayala. Who else out west could be those surprise players that we could be looking at coming into this season, where we may not know a whole lot about them now, but by the end of the year or even by midseason, we'll know a lot more about them? Who else could be surprise players for you out west?
Out west, I think Ayala's going to be the guy, man.
Okay.
I really don't see anyone else right off the top of my head that has that same profile. And like I said, just going right off the dome, I don't see anyone else that has that profile, especially for a team like Timbers that I think is going to be relying a lot on some of these guys to supply them with minutes, to be there to perform in case injuries happened, and that with this whole Andy Polo thing, might be losing a guy that hasn't been a full-on starter always, but has been a guy that Giovanni Savarese has relied on constantly, right? So I know it's a different position, but he's going to need to find a guy there, and Ayala's going to have to do some quick growing up, depending on how everything plays out with Paredes and Diego Chara. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the guy out west. A lot of fans here in Seattle like the name Leo Chu, someone who didn't get a lot of minutes, and I would still consider him a new signing because of when he came in and how he was utilized, but I just don't see it. I think Leo Chu's got some growing to do, some still adapting in a team that has a lot of options in that specific position.
Yeah.
You still don't know if they're going to play with a 4-2-3-1, and if you don't play with wingers, Leo Chu really becomes a less of a factor.
Right.
So yeah, I think Ayala's the man on that end.
Interesting. Get everybody updated on this Andy Polo situation. He's been suspended. He's not going to be a factor for the Timbers. There's some reporting that the Timbers knew about this stuff, knew that it was coming. What's going on with Andy Polo if people haven't heard?
Man, well, if you haven't heard, and these are news that I hate to be a part of, but I feel like I must. It comes with the job, is the responsibility. As a father, as a husband, it's always tough to see and hear some of these allegations, hear audios of kids screaming in the back and such. But this week, Andy Polo's, I believe it's his wife, but the mother of his children, was in a talk show very popular in Peru by the name of Tayala TV and Magala TV, something like that. And all around, she basically came out and said that there has been some domestic violence issues with Andy Polo. She put photos of bruised eyes, injuries in the face, and audio of Andy trying to take away her phone, kids screaming in the back, and her telling her to stop. I mean, she telling him to stop and to think of the kids, and there's some commotion, and it just is quite horrible to hear. So with that said, Portland put out a statement. They immediately said that he had been suspended by the league and he had been put apart from the group. Initially, I thought it was a really good thing. And because of, like I said, how graphic everything was and how it came across, I applauded that initiative. Then later I realized that my opinion didn't age well because of some issues that Portland has had in the past. And then later on, Andy Polo's, the person who obviously was victimized by Andy Polo allegedly, said that Portland was well aware of everything that was going on. And just yesterday mentioned that she believed that the club was protecting him and that they took care of everything with the police department or the police officer to ensure that it didn't get any bigger, any broader. Allegedly, there was a head of security for Portland, which at times, it could be a head of PR or a head of your, I don't know, of your staff. I'm not sure who she's referring to, but according to her, Ms. Alarcon says that there was a staff member for Portland that came in, asked her what she wanted to do. Did she want Andy Polo to leave the premises, or did she want to leave? She had nowhere to go, doesn't know anybody, so she basically said that he should go. We're still trying to figure out. There's an MLS investigation to come out that will give us details that would allow us to maybe give a better opinion on what happened. But the facts are there, and the allegations are there, so we do get to react on those, but we will have to wait what the investigation says and see what really happened.
Yeah, I think we're in a situation here where, this is going to get investigated and we'll get to the bottom of it. And, frankly, this is something that we've seen here in Atlanta with the Thiago Almada situation. Different domestic situation entirely, different situation there. But in terms of the investigation and what came out yesterday when the Thiago Almada deal was announced is that this is why Atlanta did the option that they did, the exclusive option. And I think it's why, and Darren Eales pointed this out, it's why they were very vocal in saying when Velez announced deal's done, it's this amount of money, he's going to be an Atlanta player, that Atlanta came out, which they had never done before in this situation, because clubs have announced transfers early all the time. They came out and said, no, it's not a done deal. We have an option to make it a done deal. And they didn't go into the details then because things are going on in the background. Investigations are going on. Once it came out last week in Argentina that this case that he was a person of interest in, it had been incorrectly reported early on that he was charged or that he was arrested. None of that happened. He was a person of interest. Once he was removed as a person of interest and the case is archived, which is a Argentine legal term, then they went forward and made the option a transfer. But this is going to be an investigation with Andy Polo. They've removed him from the group right now, which I think is the right move to do. And they have to get to the bottom of it because it has to play out. In Atlanta's case with Almada, it played out and they got what they wanted to get to make the deal done because they weren't going to do it otherwise. And Thiago Almada comes in. And there's a lot of reaction to that. I get it. I understand it. But Atlanta, with the timeline, and we talked about it before, the way this played out, they didn't do the deal until they knew that he was not involved in the case further. And their investigation had led them to believe that wasn't going to happen. That's why they did the option. Once it's official, you can make the deal. This stuff's all tricky. I mean, even the Darwin Machi stuff, now you've got talk about a bar fight, and that's part of the issue with why they can't do the deal with him. That's being reported in Spain. And did Charlotte know about that? This stuff is all difficult, and clubs have to react in real time. It's very hard, but the due diligence aspect of it is very important. And it sounds like in all three situations, there's varying levels of that.
Yeah, man. And look, the facts are the facts. And Almeida was in charge. And, it does become difficult, though, for a club to get a lot of that information internationally. And, situations get dealt differently in South America. I could tell you that, as a Colombian, as someone who's lived there,
right.
And sometimes things can get put away. But in terms of the Polo thing, I think it's going to be very clear if police were called, which in my mind, I have no way to doubt it. If she said she called 911 and policemen were called, there is a report. It is a public record. So There is going to be an investigation to be put out there. So I think you're going to hear from Portland very quickly because they're in a hot seat and their fans aren't happy. And, the allegations with that team and their general manager, there is some type of precedent there and people are going to want answers. So I think you're going to hear from the league and Portland rather quickly. In the Thiago situation, I will say this. Not charged, not interrogated according to Eales, as he told us yesterday in the press conference. But you have to realize that when you have a young player that you're investing a lot of money in, those intangibles are a key component. And with the Barco situation, when he came apart, we knew that there was some off the field issues with teammates, with him as a person, yada, yada, yada. And at the time, some of us ignored that and just focused on the talent. But I do believe that part of his lack of success in this league had something to do with that as well, in my opinion. So now with the Thiago Almada and the racially insensitive goal celebration and all these things, there's going to be some growing up to do from him as a player, as an individual. And, sometimes it becomes a cultural shock that you're not allowed to just do whatever you want as a soccer figure. But on the opposite end, you have to be a role model and you have to be very careful on what you do, what you say. So we'll wait and see. Thiago is a fantastic talent. I have no doubt about that, regardless of some of his ups and downs over the last couple of seasons, because he hasn't been as great as he maybe was three years ago or so. He is a very talented player, someone who could be a game changer, without a doubt, one of the biggest signings this league has ever had in terms of money, in terms of potential, where he could land and be on the international level for the national team, as well as going to Europe or whatever you want to put this guy. Sky's the limit, but he needs to come to this league and prove it.
Let me get your perspective on this, because I think you have a unique perspective with a couple of individuals that, in my opinion, are very important in Thiago Almada assimilating into the group. I think understanding the culture of the league, of the country, and two people that have done that in Seattle over the years. So Osvaldo Alonso being part of this team and Gonzalo Pineda as the manager. Mm-hmm. I think those are two very important people that will help Thiago Almada on that journey of maturing and growing up.
Hey, that's an excellent point, man. I have nothing but the best things to say about Gonzalo Pineda as not just a coach, but as a teacher, as a role model, as somebody that's going to take the extra time to make sure that players understand what is expected of him and of them as players. And that doesn't just go from the time that they walk into the facilities, but from the time that they are part of their organization. He understands what the Sounders organization asked of people. He himself is a fantastic professional. So I think you're right. He is going to be someone who I believe will be of benefit to a talented guy like Thiago to continue to develop as a soccer player, but continue to grow and mature as a person. Yeah. In terms of Ozzy Alonso, man, he is definitely going to be the guy that's going to be checking you on the spot. He is going to be that dad with a tough love, and he's going to tell you what he thinks. He in Spanish, no tiene pelos en la lengua. He'll tell you, he has no problem letting you know what's up, right? Yeah. Immediately, as soon as he sees that you're making the wrong decisions or you're not giving 100% at practice, or you're thinking about maybe heading to the club on a Friday night when you got a Sunday game, he will definitely be a guy that's going to be like, hey, look, young gun, you need to make sure that you're doing this correctly. So I think you're right. Those type of cornerstones in a mental aspect would be very important for a guy like Thiago Almada. So he surrounded himself by some very good people. So it would be on him to fail, because he has that base in a very good coach and someone who's actually going to care about those components of a player's demeanor and style of life.
Last one from you, John, because we could keep Niko for an hour, but we got a meeting coming up. So last one from you.
Well, no, and this is basically just a follow-up to the influence from Gonzalo Pineda and Osvaldo Alonso. You have someone like a Joseph Martinez who knows what it means in this town, where you have the influence from the outside and what we see from Gonzalo Pineda and Ozzy Alonso. You have the players that are there, those who are established, those who are local cornerstones already, who know the lay of the land, who will be just as important on the inside, who will be wearing the jersey with you, in addition to those guys that you know from your time in Seattle.
That's a fantastic point, man, because, yes, I'm talking about two guys, and of course, a head coach is very important, and icon like Osvaldo Alonso. But you're right. But when you got a guy like Martinez, who for everything that I hear from him, he's the most passionate guy, the most serious person that's going to be giving 110% at practice, and he's going to want to take on you immediately, and he's going to want to see that from those players that are going to potentially make him better, right? Because that's what Thiago Almada comes to do to a team that was already a contender, that in my opinion, has all the expectations to reach a East Conference final. If you ask me, those are the expectations there. So all those guys around him, they are going to be looking into Thiago and pushing him forward to say, hey, man, you're supposed to be the guy to come out and help us get even better than we were last year. So they're going to hold him accountable. I absolutely agree. I mean, this team, for me, with Thiago coming in, man, I mean, they are a top dog in this league, and they're going to have to prove it on the field. So, yeah, Thiago's going to have a lot of guys making sure that he stays accountable, that he stays in check, and giving the best of him as a player.
All right, last one for you, Niko. Last two. I got one other one I want to ask you really quick. Let me start with the other one really quickly. The Colombian match last night, Deportivo Cali and Tolima. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch it. It's the Super Cup, essentially. That's what it is here? The kind of curtain raiser for them?
Yes, yeah, it is. I didn't get a chance to watch it, unfortunately. Yesterday was a cheer competition day.
Very
so
nice.
I did not get to see it, but yes, La Supercopa was being played.
First leg, yeah.
But I didn't get to see the first leg. I'm hoping to catch the second one.
Good match. We'll catch up on that one next week. The first goal from Robles of Deportivo Cali was really nice. CONCACAF Champions League starts next week.
Yeah.
That's what I want to end with. Seattle has Motagua. We'll talk about more of that next week because it's Thursday night. That's one of the better matchups in the first round, I think. Santos Laguna and Montreal will be interesting. Santos Laguna should be favored pretty well there. I think New England's got an easy draw with Cavalli of Haiti. New York City's got an easy draw with Santos of Costa Rica. Leon with Guastatoya. That should be pretty manageable. Cruz Azul and Forge of Canada could be interesting, maybe. Saprissa Pumas is probably the biggest headlining one of this first round. Are there any teams that could get tripped up? Are you worried about Colorado with Comunicaciones?
No, I think that the MLS teams really got some. I don't like to use the word easy, but some favorable matchups. To be quite frank, I think that New England and New York and Seattle are put in a position where they should go far in this competition, looking at where they are in the bracket and the team that they'll be facing. All respect to Comunicaciones, I don't think that they have enough to really push Colorado, a good Colorado team that also has some reinforcements this season. Yep. So, yeah, I don't think that any of the MLS teams are going to have much of an issue.
Montreal Santos Laguna is a little different situation qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and the Saprissa Pumas game is a good one. You know, Saprissa is always a really good contender when it comes to the SDH championship. It's tough to play there, so we'll definitely look at that one. But I'm saying that a couple of the teams, those three that I mentioned, I think New York, the Refs, and the Sounders all have very good teams, favorable matchups, and their position in the bracket in a way that they can get really far on it. And I mean, Seattle has all the expectations after getting Rusnak and having a team that understands and knows each other as well as they have. They are right now, they'll be playing tonight, I believe, against the LA Galaxy in Coachella. And we'll be watching at this team and seeing how it progresses. But yeah, all of these teams are as the MLS defending champion. New York has also a responsibility. They have a very good team, very young, talented team. Castellanos stayed, so you have no excuses at all. You got your team, you got your squad, so now you got to just go out there and prove it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see past this first round. I think, you want to see how they hit the ground running, but that second round where the matchups get tough, does New England, does Seattle, does NYC, those are the three that I'm really looking at. Do they make a push to get to a CONCACAF final? They should. They need to. We'll see if they can get it done this time around.
It'll be funny if we see Altidore in there for the refs if it goes through, right?
That's a pretty good wild card to be able to play if Bruce Arena can get that one in the deck. We'll see. What are you teasing over the next week? What should we be looking for from you?
Yes, I've gotten a couple of messages. I really love that there's a lot of fans that want to see some content in Spanish, and I have my MLS season preview this Tuesday, 7:00 tentative for Tuesday. We're gonna have John Rojas, Felipe Cardenas, maybe John Arnold, a lot of big names coming across and talking. We're gonna have a panel. We're gonna have other journalists from Toronto and Charlotte coming in to talk about those teams. So it should be a good one this Tuesday. Pulso Sports on YouTube. Follow us on at Pulso Sports in Twitter, Facebook. So yeah, we're going to be out there putting that out. I'm always excited to do the preview with some very good professionals and give everybody a big outlook on this upcoming 2022 season.
Save a couple predictions for us, not next week, the week after, the week of the opener. Save something special for us on that Thursday.
All right. I definitely will.
Keep it up the sleeve, Niko. Hide it.
Right, you got to save a wild card there, too. Come on, man.
Yeah, man.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Hey, man, I'll make sure to do that.
All right. Niko, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
It's good talking to you guys. Have a good one. Thank you.
Well, my friend.
Make sure you're following Niko Elorolo NW on the Twitters. And check out, if you are so inclined, the Spanish language coverage that Niko and his crew excel in. Really, really good stuff. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow. Mike Conti will join us. We'll talk a little bit more about Atlanta United coming into the matches on Sunday with Chivas and with Tepatitlan in Mexico from Guadalajara. Mike and I will be on the call for those remotely. We'll be here in Atlanta, but we'll be calling those remotely on atlutd.com/live. The Douglas Costa move has been made official by the LA Galaxy. No surprise. It was just a matter of time. Thiago Almada is speaking to the media at 2:30 Eastern time. Make sure you're following all your usual folks for the live quotes from that. He is with the team in Guadalajara. He trained yesterday. That's it. That's all the updates. It's been a lot. It's been busy. This was one of those shows that, the rundown was a little light, and I was curious to see which direction it would go, and some good questions from you guys, some great interaction, and some stuff happening as we are on the show. You never know what can happen on an SDH appearance. You never know. We get updates that Charlotte's big signing has fallen apart, and he was involved in a bar fight. And was that known? Who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see what Charlotte does. And, hey, there's a team just down the road that has a player in a position that might be interested in making a move. Just saying. We'll see. But we'll talk about all of that tomorrow. Thanks for being part of it. Make sure you're following us at Soccer Down Here on all your platforms. And we'll see you at 9:05 in the morning. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.